The evening felt ordinary until your sister's voice shattered the calm. She said she was moving into your old condo, the place you worked so hard to buy, the home where every brick carried the weight of your sacrifices. For a moment, you froze, because in her words echoed something far more dangerous than confusion. A belief planted deep by your own parents. Suddenly, what should have been a bond between sisters twisted into suspicion, as if love could be rewritten by lies. And beneath it all was a silence that hurt more than any accusation. Tonight, you'll step into a story of hidden truths and broken trust. If journeys like this touch your heart, a gentle like and subscribe will keep you close as we uncover more. The silence after your sister's call didn't fade, it lingered, like smoke that clings to your chest. You try to return to your work, the numbers glowing on your screen, but every figure blurred, every line of your quarterly report dissolved into the same thought. Why would she believe that condos still belonged to them? And then the phone rang again. This time, it wasn't your sister. It was your mother. You hesitated, watching the screen vibrate across your desk, almost willing it to stop. But it didn't. You answered. Her voice arrived sharp, carrying no trace of warmth. How could you do this to Hazel? She was in tears last night. You've humiliated her, Clover. She's already told her roommates she's moving out. You took a steady breath, forcing yourself to keep calm. Mom, I didn't do anything wrong. I bought that condo. I have the deed. I paid for it 4 years ago with my own money. I'm renting it legally. I have a tenant with a contract. But she didn't acknowledge your words. She twisted them. That was just a formality. Family property stays in the family. We never intended for you to treat it like an investment. The word landed with a sting, as if your efforts, your long nights working 3 jobs, your sacrifices to finally own something of your own meant nothing. You stepped to the window, looking down at the glow of Madrid's streets 30 floors below. The city pulsed with life, but inside, you felt a strange stillness. Your mother's voice pressed on, layered with disappointment. Hazel is struggling in college while you are gallivanting across Europe. Do you even know how much we've done for her? We used your condo money for her tuition. We've been carrying her dreams while you chase your career. You almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. You knew Hazel had a scholarship, though you had never seen the details. Still, your instincts told you something was wrong. Numbers were your language, and these numbers didn't add up. Mom, close quote, you said, voice tightening, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through school. I took out loans. I paid for that condo with my money. What you're saying doesn't make sense. There was silence, sharp and heavy. And then, in a tone you recognized all too well, she said, if you don't let Hazel move in, I'll have no choice but to tell the family how selfish you've become. Your grandparents would be so disappointed. It was not just a threat. It was a chain, the same chain she had used since you were a child, polished with guilt and duty. For years, you had believed it. But now, standing in your apartment with the proof of your sacrifice stored in your files, something inside you shifted. You ended the call before your voice could break. The screen dimmed, but your heart kept racing. You sat down, staring at the deed on your laptop once again, the words crisp and undeniable. Your name, your money, your home. And yet, the narrative your parents had spun was different. Hazel believed it, the family believed it, and perhaps even you had believed parts of it over the years. The phone buzzed again. Another call from your mother. Then another. Then a string of messages in the family group chat. Your sister is devastated. You've gone too far. This behavior is unacceptable. You silenced the phone, letting it rest face down on the desk. For once, you refused to let it dictate your truth. But the ache inside you remained, not just from the lies, but from the realization that your parents had carefully planted seeds of doubt between you and your sister. They had watered those seeds with guilt, letting them grow into walls of misunderstanding. And tonight, for the first time, you saw those walls clearly. Your chest tightened, not from fear, but from clarity. You weren't just fighting for a condo. You were fighting for the truth of your own life. The hours crawled by. Madrid's skyline darkened. You sat at your desk, replaying every conversation in your head. Your mother's insistence. Hazel's disappointment. The strained silence in your father's absence. Then, a message appeared on your phone. Not from your mother. From someone else. Aunt Marlene. We need to talk. Privately. Relief washed over you like a sudden breeze. Marlene had always been different, the aunt who whispered truths at family gatherings, who remembered things as they happened, not as your mother retold them. If anyone held answers, it was her. You typed quickly. When? Her response came instantly. Tonight. 9 p.m. your time. Video call. Don't tell your mother. Your pulse quickened. You weren't sure what she would reveal, but you knew one thing. The story you had been living was about to change. And as you sat back in your chair, the city lights flickering outside, a quiet strength rose in you. Maybe, after all these years, you were finally ready to face the truth. The weight of family stories like this one often lies not in the shouting or the threats, but in the silences that follow. If this journey speaks to something inside you, perhaps a hidden memory, a familiar feeling, you're not alone. A gentle way to stay with us is simply pressing that subscribe button, letting each new story find its way to you. No noise, no pressure, just a quiet promise to share more truths together. 9 o'clock arrived, and your laptop screen flickered with the familiar face of Aunt Marlene. But something about her expression was different tonight. Her eyes darted over her shoulder before she even spoke. "Is anyone with you?" Close quote, you asked. She shook her head quickly. "No. Roger took the kids out. But listen, we don't have much time." Her voice carried urgency, the kind that makes your stomach twist. And then the words spilled out, sharp and fast. "Your parents have been lying to both you and Hazel for years." You gripped your coffee mug until your knuckles turned white. You had suspected pieces, but hearing it aloud was like a door slamming open. "I should have spoken up sooner," close quote, she continued, tears pooling in her eyes. "But Lorraine, your mother, she has a way of keeping people quiet. When I found out the truth about Hazel's scholarship, she threatened me. Said if I breathed a word, she would destroy my reputation in the family." Scholarship. The word cut through the fog. "Hazel's scholarship?" Close quote, you asked, leaning closer. Marlene nodded and sent a file through the chat. You clicked it open, and there it was, a university letterhead, crisp and official. A scholarship award. Full tuition, room, board, everything. Your breath caught. Hazel's education hadn't cost your parents a dime. "They told me my condo money was paying for her tuition," close quote, you whispered. "They told Hazel they were scraping to cover the bills," close quote, Marlene said, voice trembling. "But the truth is her education was free." The betrayal stung deeper than you expected. Because it wasn't just about the money. It was about trust. It was about years of guilt, about your mother's constant sighs and heavy words. "Do you know how much we sacrifice for you?" And now you saw it for what it was, a performance. But Marlene wasn't finished. She leaned closer to the screen, lowering her voice even more. "There's something else. Something bigger. About your grandmother." Your chest tightened. You remembered her faintly warm cookies, scratchy wool sweaters, the smell of cinnamon at Christmas. She had passed when you were only 12. "Your grandmother left a trust for you and Hazel," close quote, Marlene said. $85,000 each, specifically for your education. And monthly stipends for your care, almost $900 a month per child until you turned 18. Over the years, that was more than $400,000. The room tilted. You pressed a palm to your forehead. "They told me they couldn't afford school trips. They told me to work summers because money was tight. And yet they spent it," close quote, Marlene said flatly. "Vacations, shopping, even a boat your father bought. Meanwhile, you carried student loans, and Hazel believed she was dependent on their generosity." You thought of Hazel's voice on the phone, the irritation, the disbelief. You've always had everything handed to you. But it wasn't her fault. It was the script she had been given. Your throat tightened. "They turned us against each other." Marlene nodded sadly. "Yes. They made you believe Hazel was the favored one. They made Hazel believe you were selfish and ungrateful. It was divide and conquer. And it worked until now." For a long moment, you stared at the scholarship letter glowing on your screen. The truth was in front of you, undeniable. The lies that had shaped years of resentment, guilt, and distance between you and your sister, all of it, shattered in an instant. And yet, this wasn't just about exposing lies. It was about healing something that had been broken for too long. You knew what you had to do. 2 hours later, Hazel's face appeared on your screen, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What's going on?" Aunt Marlene said this was important. You took a deep breath. "Hazel, I need to show you something first." You shared your screen, pulling up the deed to your condo. "This is the document showing I purchased the condo from Mom and Dad 4 years ago. With my money. For $185,000. Her eyes widened. "But they told me." "I know what they told you," close quote, you interrupted softly. "But this is the truth." Hazel's voice faltered. "Then why would they?" Close quote, "Because they wanted us to believe different stories. They wanted us to fight shadows instead of seeing them clearly." You looked at her, your heart aching at the tears welling in her eyes. "Now, Hazel, I need you to show me your scholarship letter." She blinked. "How do you know about that?" Close quote, "Please. It matters." She disappeared from view, and for a moment you feared she wouldn't return. But then she came back, holding a folder. She pulled out the letter, hesitated, and then held it to the camera. The words on the page told the same story as Marlene's file. Full scholarship, zero parental contribution. Hazel's lips trembled. "They told me tuition cost thousands. They said they couldn't afford anything extra. And they told me my condo money went to your tuition, close quote, you added quietly. For a moment, the silence between you was heavier than any argument. But then Hazel whispered, why would they lie? What did they do with all that money? Close quote. Marlene cleared her throat softly. Girls, is about your grandmother's trust. As Marlene explained everything, the monthly stipends, the inheritance meant for both of you, you watched realization dawn across Hazel's face. Anger, hurt, confusion. It was like watching your own reaction mirrored. All those years. Close quote. Hazel whispered. I felt guilty every time I asked for money for school trips, for prom dresses. Mom would sigh and say how much they were sacrificing. And then they'd go to Vegas for a conference. They manipulated us, close quote, you said, voice steady despite the ache inside. They made us feel indebted for things they never actually provided. They turned us against each other so we wouldn't compare notes. Hazel wiped her eyes, her hand trembling. I believed them when they said you didn't care about my education. That you were too busy with your own life. And I resented you for years. And I believed them when they said the glow of the screen lingered in your apartment long after the call ended. For the first time in years, you and Hazel had spoken not as strangers divided by half-truths, but as sisters, bound by the same wound. The truth was heavy, but it was also freeing. You didn't sleep that night. Instead, you opened folders, dug through old emails, pulled bank statements you hadn't thought about in years. Every file became a piece of a puzzle you hadn't known existed until now. On the other side of the world, Hazel was doing the same. The silence between you was replaced by messages, photos of documents, and quick calls that stitched together the story your parents had tried so hard to conceal. The more you found, the more the pattern emerged. Hazel whispered into the phone one evening, her voice breaking with disbelief. They told me last year they couldn't afford my housing, that Dad's medical bills had drained their savings. Do you know what I found? Pictures of them in Cabo that same winter. Smiling on a beach. Not a hospital bill in sight. You sat up straighter, the words slicing through the haze of fatigue. Wait. I gave them $5,000 to help cover those bills. Hazel's silence told you everything. And then her voice, low and hard. There were no bills. The realization washed over you both, leaving behind a strange quiet. They hadn't just bent the truth. They had twisted it, reshaped it into something that served only themselves, all while making you believe you were somehow in debt to them. That night, Hazel sent another message. A photo of your mother's diary she had discovered in a drawer. Scrawled in familiar handwriting was a line that made your chest tighten. Kitchen renovation paid with Clover's condo money. Cruise deposit confirmed. You stared at the words until they blurred. All those years of guilt, of being told you were selfish, while the money you had worked for was funneled into renovations and vacations. The pieces were falling into place, but each new revelation deepened the ache in your chest. You and Hazel began to build a folder, a shared vault of truth. There was the deed to your condo. The scholarship letter. The trust documents Aunt Marlene had kept safe. Screenshots of travel receipts pulled from your mother's social media. Each page was like a mirror shattering the illusions you had once accepted as fact. Late one night, Hazel's face appeared on your laptop again. Her eyes were puffy, her voice hoarse from crying. They told me you refused to help with my tuition. That you were too busy with your life abroad. I hated you for that. And it was all a lie. You swallowed hard, feeling the same confession burn in your chest. And they told me you were handed everything, that I was the one who carried all the weight while you were spoiled. And I believed them too. Hazel shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. We were never enemies. They just wanted us to think we were. You nodded, a tear sliding down your own face. No more secrets. No more walls between us. From that moment, you weren't just gathering evidence. You were reclaiming something far more precious, the bond that had been fractured for years. Days blurred into nights as you pieced everything together. You found bank statements showing monthly withdrawals marked for educational expenses, close quote, even while Hazel's scholarship covered everything. Hazel uncovered receipts for luxury vacations during the same months your mother claimed she was behind on mortgage payments. The inconsistencies piled high, undeniable. And with every discovery, you felt a strength growing between you. Where once there had been doubt, now there was resolve. One evening, Hazel whispered into the phone, her voice steady despite the tremor underneath. I don't want to be afraid of them anymore. I don't want to live inside their story. I want us to tell our own. You looked around your Madrid apartment, the city lights glowing against the glass. For the first time in years, you felt less alone. We will. But first, we confront them. Together. Hazel nodded, her face flickering with determination. When? Close quote. You pulled up flight schedules, your hands steady despite the storm inside you. Next Thursday. I'll be there. For a moment, Hazel's eyes softened. 5 days, close quote, she whispered. I'll be ready. After the call, you packed in silence. Each shirt folded into your suitcase carried memories of your mother's criticisms: that color doesn't suit you, you're trying too hard, you'll never keep that job. Each object became a reminder of the small ways they had chipped at your confidence until you almost believed their version of you. But not anymore. As you zipped the suitcase shut, a quiet resolve settled over you. This trip wouldn't be about reconciliation. It would be about clarity. About reclaiming the truth that had been stolen piece by piece. The next days were filled with preparation. Hazel scanned more documents, Marlene sent copies of trust statements, and you organized everything into folders. Each file was labeled, every piece in order. The plan wasn't about revenge. It was about facing them without fear, armed with the truth. And then the day came. The flight was long, the hours stretching endlessly, but the weight inside you carried you forward. When you finally landed, Hazel was there waiting, her presence both fragile and strong. She looked different, older, but also lighter, as if the burden of lies was already lifting from her shoulders. You embraced tightly, holding on as if to anchor each other. The drive to your childhood home was quiet. The streets looked smaller than you remembered, the houses less imposing. The past no longer loomed as large when the truth was finally in your hands. Hazel broke the silence. I found something else. Another folder. Mom's notes about the trust. She wrote that the money was their reward, their right, not ours. Your stomach clenched, but your voice remained calm. It's not just notes. It's evidence. And now, they'll have to face it. As the car rolled to a stop in front of the house, you looked at Hazel. For the first time in years, you weren't stepping into this alone. You had her. She had you. And together, you carried the truth like a shield. The air felt heavy as you stepped onto the familiar path lined with flowers your mother had always tended. The front door stood tall, the same door you had walked through countless times as a child. But tonight, it wasn't an entrance. It was a threshold. One that would end the illusions of the past and begin something new. And as Hazel reached for your hand, her grip steady despite the tremble, you knew. Whatever happened next, you were finally ready to face it. The car's engine ticked softly as it cooled in the driveway, and you sat for a moment longer, staring at the house that had once been the center of your world. The windows glowed warmly against the autumn dusk, the same windows you had pressed your face against as a child, waiting for your parents to come home. Tonight, they no longer looked like a beacon of safety. They looked like walls hiding secrets you were finally ready to expose. Hazel's hand found yours. Are you ready? Close quote, she asked, her voice low. You nodded. Not because you felt brave, but because you couldn't carry the weight of silence any longer. Together, you walked toward the front door, each step heavy with years of memories, birthdays, holidays, arguments all tangled in the same place. You were about to confront the truth. The door swung open before you could knock. Your mother's face appeared first, surprise flashing across her features before settling into a practiced smile. Clover, close quote, she exclaimed, arms outstretched. What a wonderful surprise. Our successful daughter returns. Your father followed, his voice booming too loudly in the narrow entryway. Look at you. Madrid must be treating you well. Their performance was flawless, but you no longer believed in it. Hazel stood firm beside you, clutching the manila folder close to her chest. Your mother's eyes flicked toward her. Hazel, sweetheart. You didn't tell me you were coming with your sister. What a lovely surprise. Hazel's grip tightened on the folder. We're here to talk. Your mother's smile faltered. Oh, let's not get into anything serious right now. I've made your favorite pot roast, Clover. We can talk after dinner. No, close quote, you said firmly. We talk now. The dining room was exactly as you remembered it, the polished oak table gleaming under the chandelier. How many times had you sat at that table, absorbing lectures, accepting guilt, letting their version of reality shape your own? Tonight, the table would hold something different. Evidence. Hazel opened the folder with trembling fingers and laid 3 documents across the wood. The deed to your condo, her scholarship letter, and the trust statements Marlene had preserved. The papers seemed small against the vast surface, yet they carried the weight of everything unspoken. Your father's face paled as his eyes flicked over the pages. Your mother moved quickly, her hand darting forward as if to snatch them away, but you placed your palm firmly on top. They stay here, close quote, you said quietly. Your mother's voice sharpened. Where did you get these? Close quote, the deed is mine, close quote, you answered. The scholarship letter belongs to Hazel. And the trust statements, Marlene kept them. At the mention of her sister's name, your mother froze. Marlene had no right, she had every right, close quote, Hazel interrupted, her voice stronger than you'd ever heard it. Someone had to tell us the truth. Your father sank into his chair, shoulders slumping, as though the weight of the papers had settled on him. This is all a misunderstanding, close quote, he muttered. You slid the scholarship letter toward him. Is it? Hazel had a full ride. You told her tuition cost thousands. You told me my condo money went to cover her education. None of that was true. Hazel's voice wavered but did not break. You told me Clover refused to help with my tuition, that she didn't care about me. And I believed you. Your mother's mask of patience cracked. Her shoulders straightened and her eyes hardened. Fine, close quote, she snapped. So what if we did? We raised you. We gave you food, a home, clothes. That was our duty, and this, she gestured at the papers, was our reward. The words landed like stones in the room. You stared at her, searching for some trace of remorse, some flicker of shame. None appeared. It was a trust, close quote, you said softly, but each syllable cut like glass. Grandmother left it for our education. Not for vacations. Not for cruises. For us. And we educated you, didn't we? Close quote, she shot back. You both have diplomas. What we did with the money was our business. Hazel drew a sharp breath, her hands trembling at her sides. You stole from us, close quote, she whispered. And you tried to steal our relationship too. Your father wouldn't meet your eyes. His hands fidgeted on the table, the same hands that had signed the withdrawals, the same hands that had patted your head and told you everything would be fine. If you walk out that door, close quote, your mother said coldly, don't expect to be welcomed back. Family supports family. That's how it works. You turned to Hazel, bracing for fear, but found only resolve in her gaze. We never really were welcome, close quote, she said softly. Not unless we were useful. You gathered the documents, sliding them back into the folder. Your movements were steady, each gesture deliberate. We'll be pursuing legal options, close quote, you told them. I suggest you prepare. Your mother's laugh rang out, brittle and sharp. Good luck proving anything after all this time. Marlene has everything, close quote, you replied. Bank statements, emails, trustee documents. All of it. At that, your father's head snapped up. His face drained of color. She wouldn't dare, close quote, your mother hissed. She already has, close quote, Hazel said quietly. And she has nothing left to lose with you. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. For once, neither of them had words to twist into chains. You and Hazel turned toward the door, your steps synchronized, each one pulling you further from the shadow of their control. No one followed. No one called you back. The house that had once been the center of your world grew smaller behind you, the glow of its windows fading into the dark. The silence between you and Hazel wasn't heavy anymore. It was full of something else, clarity. As you walked to the car, Hazel's hand slipped into yours. Her voice was soft, but steady. They didn't even try to apologize. They don't think they did anything wrong, close quote, you answered, unlocking the car. And that's the part that hurts the most. You climbed inside together, the air thick with everything that had been said and everything that never would be. Hazel wiped a tear from her cheek, her jaw tight. Where to? Close quote, you asked. She looked straight ahead, her eyes reflecting the glow of the streetlights. Forward. Anywhere that's forward. The car pulled away, the house shrinking in the rearview mirror. And for the first time in years, you didn't feel like you were running from something. You felt like you were stepping into something new, uncertain, yes, but finally free. The road stretched ahead, silent except for the hum of the engine. The house behind you was no longer a home, it was a chapter closed, a story exposed for what it truly was. In the quiet of that drive, you realized that sometimes freedom doesn't arrive with cheers or victories. It comes with silence, with a decision to no longer carry what was never yours to bear. Hazel leaned against the window, her reflection softened by the passing lights. For the first time in years, she wasn't the rival your parents had painted her to be. She was your sister again, wounded, yes, but beside you, with truth as your shared compass. The bond they had tried to break was stronger than the lies. And as you drove forward, you knew the journey wasn't about reclaiming money.